Hello, everybody. I'm welcome to Fashion Coffee Hour. I'm Stanley Smith, and this is Marcy Carmack. Got a special guest today, Ray Tareghian from Burberry. Ray spent his lifetime, actually his career at Burberry here in Chicago on Michigan Avenue, and we're very excited to have Ray. Ray is one of our most popular guests on Fashion Coffee Hour, and we probably have at least three shows we think out of Ray coming up here when we pre-interviewed him. First show probably is today's subject, the Ray and his history at Burberry. Show number 2 possibly could be how to display it versus how to wear it. And show number 3, live from Ray's closet. People are just dying to find out the incredible collection that Ray has assembled over the years in his closet of Burberry's. But today we're going to try to focus and rein Ray in to the topic of Ray and his history at the Burberry store here in Chicago. So Ray, we'll turn it over to you, and why don't you give us a rundown on this incredible history and legacy you have here in Chicago?
Great. Well, hello, everybody. I was employed at 17 years old. I saw this ad in a newspaper in London, and after I left school, I said, well, let me do a internship at Burberry. Instead of deciding to go to college at that time, I went for apprenticeship at Burberry. And at that time, Burberry was a private company, and they were owned by another company called GUS, which stands for Great Universal Stores. And they owned lots and lots of different companies, retail and other kinds of companies. So when I started with Burberry, I used to do at least 6 or 7 different other companies' windows. So in different stores I go to. It would have been always Burberry. It would have been other companies. So I got my training with all these other companies. And my favorite store in London was the Knightsbridge store. And if you know Knightsbridge, we were in the middle, and Harrods department store was to our right, and Harvey Nichols was in front of us. That was it was an old store there. It was called the Scotch House. And that's where I did most of my training. And like I said, GUS owned lots and lots of different names. So
was it not called Burberry at the time? It was called Scotch House?
That particular one was called the Scotch House. And they carried number one. They sold it. They were the number one knitwear seller in the world, and tartan. They had a library of tartan in that store. There were at least over 1,000 different tartans, where a customer could come in and give their name, and then they'll find that tartan for them. And mostly at that time it was American customers, McDonald, Hunter, whatever it was. They would come in, and you can buy the tartan by the yard. So they will sell it, they had the rule, and they'll tear up the tartan, or you can even have kilts made at that store for yourselves, and women or men's. I'm just going to surprise you and tell you, and nobody knows this, but in a man's kilt, how many yards go in a man's kilt? I was surprised when I was there.
Oh, is it 9?
30 yards.
Oh my God.
Imagine that. 90 feet go into one man's kilt. They're so pleated tightly together because, as you know, when you wear a kilt, the men don't wear underwear underneath, so they need to be heavy. It doesn't blow up. And they have those little, they call them a sporran. It's a man's bag that comes in front of the kilt. You've seen them where they put there's no pockets on those things. So there was a little hat, like a sporran, and that was to hold the kilt down too in a windy day.
Anyway, we're going to try to put up a couple of these slides you sent to us.
Yeah, go ahead.
The history of Burberry.
Yeah, so I worked in the windows in Burberry's and that Scotch House, and I was very lucky. I had one of the best window dressers in the country that worked for Burberry at the time. So I used to train with him every day. He was my mentor at Burberry. And I worked with him in England till I left to come to the US. I was in the windows and interiors every day with him. He was showing me all the tricks of the trade.
That's the one on the Facebook screen. So just
do you
click on it.
You do that, or do I do that? Oh, here we go.
There we go.
All right, here we go. Here's some pictures that we have. These are actually pictures when I came to Chicago. So the early ones I'm going to put in maybe later on. So you got a picture here of Burberry used Kate Moss here when she just started. She had just started, and we were the first ones to use her. As you can see, she was maybe about 20 years old there, or maybe a little less. And
that's awesome. What a great picture.
That was a W magazine cover that she was on, and the whole. That's when Christopher Bailey came with us. That was like 2001 or 2001.
Yes. We've had a lot of questions about Christopher Bailey and his time there and his tenure there.
W did the whole thing, as you can see, from where Burberry's used to be very, very traditional to what she's wearing, what she's doing in that.
Wait, I want to hear a little bit about Angela Ahrens.
Oh yes, I'll go. That was well before Angela Ahrens was Rosemary Bravo. She was our first boss from America, who went to England and completely changed Burberry completely around. And she's the one that hired Christopher Bailey, Kate Moss, and all those models at that time. Stella, she started with Burberry very, very young. And then from 2004, that's when Angela was hired by Rosemary. But Rosemary is the one who really did change everything around. You have some photographs here. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. So I came to the Chicago store to open up this store that you have right now. As you can see, it says Burberry's on the building there. And at that time, we can fly flags, which you can't do that anymore.
Oh, look at that. Yeah.
You have the American flag and the British flag. And you have, there was like 12 windows there. So there was a lot of work. And when I first came there was another store that was just leaving. They were called Frank Brothers, that had been there since the 40s. So they were there 30 years. And when we came, 1981, they were just leaving. So I was here for the whole construction of this store. And on the roof, Stanley was asking about a billboard. You can just see it above it. The billboard was already there when we bought the building, and it was 100 feet above the store. And of course, we use all our ads in it because you could see it from everywhere on Michigan.
Yes.
Whichever direction you came, it was so big. And we had it grandfathered in so we could keep it, but you weren't allowed to have any billboards on Michigan Avenue, anybody. There was only 2 of them, and this was one of them. And as I went on to the Michigan Avenue Association myself, I joined. So a few years later, I made Burberry take it down. So that was, and it was so big that I had to take it down with a helicopter. I had to take it off the roof. It was so big. Anyway, so that was that.
That's before my time.
And then windows that we have here. As you can see, windows were very, very traditional at that time. This one, we have more of a hunting or shooting or fishing.
Yeah, with the Audubon prints.
Window, as you can see, and how the mannequins were dressed. We used to show a story in the window. So it wasn't just a mannequin and just a clothing. It didn't make any sense. We actually have something going on in windows. It was like a movie set in each window. You could see in the other window at another time where we had the merchandise that goes, the colors that all go together. And then we had some props that you can see, but very, very traditional. And both of these were in the Chicago store.
Ray, in talking to you earlier, you made the comment about the traditional versus the fashion, and that kind of was the direction and drove the company to elevate itself, was the move from tradition to fashion.
Right. So what happened was our company used to be always very, very traditional. We were a raincoat company, really an outerwear company, no fashion. We didn't have any fashion designers. We weren't a luxury house. We weren't anything to do with fashion. We just had what you saw is what we had. That we made the best raincoats and outerwear, and that's what we sold. We were number 1 in the world. If you go into a dictionary or Google, and if you press trench coat, it will say Burberry, because that's what it is.
Like Kleenex.
Any other company. Yeah, it's not Coca-Cola or anyone else. We're Burberry, the raincoat. So I just want to say, when I first came to Chicago, the whole street was different. It was all the stores on most of them on the street were privately owned. They were mom and pop stores. They weren't all these corporate companies. And of course, one by one, they all got, all left, and then big corporations took over.
And Ray, you said you came the same year that Neiman Marcus opened on Michigan.
Yes. When we were doing our construction, Neiman Marcus was building that Olympia building, right behind that big building that was all being built. And the front of it was Neiman Marcus. At that time in Chicago, you had I Magnin, where on the corner there where Toys R Us is. You had Bonatella in the bottom of the Hancock building the whole thing was Bonatella. And of course we had Marshall Fields and Lord & Taylor each side of the
and how old were you when you came here?
Place.
Were you 12, Ray? You were 12 years old.
And then Saks, Saks were actually where Nike is now. That was all Saks.
Ray, Marcy asked how old you were when
I came. I was 24. So so that's where Saks was. But I was just going to say, across the street from us, the whole west side of Michigan Avenue has been torn down from 1000, from Oak Street to Ontario. Nearly every building had gone in between 81 and
you're right.
And say 2010. All those buildings were ripped down, and they were all beautiful buildings, like the Ladies Athletic Club there, which is opposite us.
Yeah.
That's the only one left there. And of course, the Ritz-Carlton you see there, that was opened up too.
Right, here are a couple more pictures of window displays. Some of these are really charming.
So you've got a traditional on the right in the old store, as you can see through the store actually. And at that time, this was for a award that we had won. So we'd done all these dogs in Burberry Czech, and actually I made all the dog collars. You can't see, we made it bigger. They're all jewels around their neck, and each dog has a different color to match their tartan that they have. So all those done by hand, so all glued, hot glue gun, every single jewel. It took me 3 weeks to make those for the windows. And then on the left, that was Christopher Bailey when he first started. So you can see the differences.
And what did Christopher Bailey first bring? Like, what was the noticeable change? What was his direction that you noticed?
Well, Christopher Bailey was he was hired from. He was working at Gucci at the time. He was Tom Ford's right-hand man. Actually, he did the women's wear for Gucci, and Tom Ford did men's. That was going on at that time. And Rosemary Bravo stole him from Gucci to Burberry. Number one, he's English. Number two, they wanted to bring someone, English back to the company again to design the new fashion. And as you can see there, but the good thing, it was always, Christopher Bailey always went into the archives and took pieces where they can use still. So
that's an interesting point. The archives, you mentioned that in the pre-interview, that's a great resource and kind of unique to Burberry. They keep an archive of all their.
We have a really unique archive. It's a 3 or 4 story building full of clothing and different exhibits. We have here.
Ray, I'm just curious though, those tartans, there are 3 different ones. Do they still do all these different tartans?
Yes, we've got every season they'll bring out a different one, but they still have all these ones. We had at that time, I think there was like 15 different Burberry Czech colors in the windows. Every dog was a different color.
Cool.
But like I said, tartan that we carried in a Scotch house is not Burberry Czechs. 2 different things. That's a Scottish tartan, which is from the clans from hundreds of years ago. And this was a Burberry Czech that was done by Thomas Burberry around 19th century.
That's good to know.
A little different. So here we won an award for this. We had the best Christmas windows in Chicago. And these cupboards were made, as you can see, they're little Christmas ornaments. And then inside you can put merchandise, which was great, which we used. And again, at this time, there was no Christopher Bailey. So as you can see, it's a little different again. I had to design these in the windows to make them more fashionable. It's
traditional, but very stylish, right?
Yeah, you see the raincoat on the gray raincoat on the right there over a evening dress. You have a backpack over an evening dress, and you had a handkerchief over the head. So those things we try to make it more fashionable. But I was just going to say to you, so Marcy, in front of Burberry, when we opened, there was a Woolworth store. That's how far we go back. A Woolworth, WH Woolworths, where I used to go for lunch once and then twice a week. All right, so this is where, when we first started with Kate Moss, as you can see, complete different, more sexy, fashionable. The Burberry checks now made into a really fashionable handbag, that sort of silvery, lightweight jacket, and so on. So as you can see, it's completely different to what we were used to. And Christopher Bailey really turned it around for us too. And that's
his focus was the women, because he had been the fashion designer for women at Gucci, you said.
Yes, so he was really good at the women. Like I was saying before, there's a lot of designers at Burberry. It's not just one person. He's the creative, but he has 30 different designers there designing different things: shoes, handbags, jewelry, men's clothing. It could be shirt. So many different variety of things. But he was the one for, as you can see, for the women's, and the business completely changed around. So we weren't a fashion house till he started, and he started then, having the runway shows. The funny thing is, there was no runway shows in London, so we were always in Milan. All our first runway shows with Christopher Bailey were always in Milan, till he changed it and brought it back to London, where it was deserved, of course. Then it really started. The London fashion started, but before that, we were always in Milan. So you can see a mannequin here dressed up in Christopher Bailey's outfit. You can see really that shiny leather with like a mini skirt in that leopard skin. You can see outfit. So completely different. This was our store in Toronto. I just opened up, and that was the first day in Toronto. What happened was, every store I opened up, I always took a picture in the front the first day. So there'll be hundreds of them I have. This was the one in Toronto. And of course, this one was with Stanley when we did our window competition for Warhol.
Yes.
So I just want to go back again a little bit to the Chicago store when we opened up. Like I said, we came here because it was a conservative town. That was number one, conservative. And it changed over the years as it went. And like I said, a lot of those stores that were here have gone, new stores have come, have taken over, and so on and so on. And then this new building on your left is done by our in-house designers. We have in-house interior designers, in-house architects, in-house everything. We don't go out for anything, which is great. So that means that Christopher Bailey has control of the building, how it's built, the clothing, how it's sold, the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting too, Ray, how that the store itself eventually became the billboard. I mean,
exactly. So that's what he wanted to do. We're the only one in the world with this amount of height of Burberry check. There was a couple of them made like this. Two are in China, and one is in Korea. And I think that, and two in China, one in Korea. But we have the best example in Chicago, and this is an energy saving building. So it's all LED lights everywhere. Every line has Burberry check line in that building has thousands of light bulbs, but nothing's been changed since we opened. So that's how long these things last. And it's, like I say, it's an energy building. So the roof it's all grass and green. So it's warm in the winter and cooler in the summer. And just let you know, Chicago is #1 for the rooftop in all of America. We're #1. No one has more than us. Even being so cold here, we're still #1. That was that was from Mayor Daley who did that, and a lot of people went into it because it was you get a lot of big tax deductions when you do that too. And
well, it's nice for the neighbors too. They have something green to look down on.
Exactly, all the buildings look down. As you can see, this building is higher than the other one. It's because we own the air rights. So the building behind us lost a few windows, I'm sorry to say.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So we've got to go into questions now. Huh? So.
Well, Marcy, do you have any questions for Ray that you might want to give him a heads up on for later on this evening? Anything that's on your mind? I said from our viewers, Marianne in New York, she was really keen on the Christopher Bailey.
Yeah.
So, I was curious to find out that you started by doing tartans for all these people, and then he came up with the check. And
no. What happened, Marcy, was we carried over 1,000 tartans in our Scotch House store. Now those tartans aren't made by us. Those are tartans which are in Scotland, and then people can order them. It could be any name you think of. His tartan will be there. You know, from just if you take just a Stuart family, there'll be 6 different tartans just for Stuart, because there is muted Stuart, dress Stuart, royal Stuart, all different, and all different. They're all the same pattern, but they're different shades of the color. And the royal's always the brightest out of all of them. And I worked in that. It was like a round library, and instead of having books, the tartans were packed on top of each other in the wells where you open them up. It was
you owned
we owned that
Scotch
house?
Yeah. Scott House?
Yeah, Scotch House.
Scotch House.
They were the #1 knitwear company, and they made all our knitwear for Burberry and Scotch House. So we made the material, we made the outfits, and we sold it. There was no middlemen again. That's why it was a lot less expensive. It still is less expensive, our fashion, than if you go into Chanel, Prada, any of those stores. Their prices are a lot higher. Gucci, Louis Vuitton. Ours are always lower because we use our own products. There's no middleman, you see, from the beginning.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's how they did it. So, and I got all my training again, most of it from Scotch House, but I did look after Burberry in London because that was one of our stores, and we had at least in London 7, 8, 9 stores which I used to look after, go to. So
okay.
Yeah.
So what is the relationship of Burberry to Scotch House?
All right. So what it is they were all owned by GUS, Great Universal Stores, which were owned by one family in the UK. The Wolfson family owned all these till they put it on the stock market. When Burberry went on the stock market, then it became no more private. Yes. They still had most probably a lot of the A shares, but it was a corporation. But before that, it was all family owned. So when we opened a store in Chicago or Washington, the owners came to Chicago and cut the ribbon. Like in Chicago, they came, the owner came, and at that time the mayor, you know who it was, Stanley.
Was that Washington?
The nice
Washington
lady.
Or Byrne?
No, the nice lady. What was her name?
Byrne.
Exactly.
I like Mayor Byrne.
Yes, she was nice. She was there for the opening, and people like so the owners always came. But after that, of course, when they sold, they didn't come anymore. Yeah. I worked at.
Who did they sell to?
What's that?
Who did they sell to? Who did you sell to?
They didn't sell it. It just went on the stock market.
Yeah, it became public.
It's still theirs somehow because they have the shares.
And the Scotch House still exists.
No, they closed them all up. The last.
But they still manufacture, right?
Yes, they still manufacture because they make all the kilts and knitwear and everything for Burberry and other companies. We GUS also owns other companies. Experian belongs to GUS as a surprise company in the US. What's that got to do with retail? We don't know, but they buy lots of companies like that, and they've always done. So I worked at one of the Burberry stores in London in the Haymarket, which was opened by Thomas Burberry in 1901, and the Burberry family sold it to Great Universal Stores in 1955. See what I'm saying? So that store was really special that I worked there, because that was the actual building of Thomas Burberry. The building is still there, but we sold that building because they moved to Regent Street, and they got a bigger building now in Regent Street. And that building is right around the corner from Piccadilly Circus. That's where he was.
So it's very unusual today to meet somebody that has spent their whole career in a fashion house or in any company. So
I could tell you why. It's because I had fun there. It wasn't work. I every time in the morning, I couldn't wait to get to that store. And so getting away, I had to get there. There was something to do. I was doing projects or this and that. And the good thing with me is I never was in one store all the time. I've opened 100 stores in the US and Canada since I've been here. So I've always been away. And every month, 1 week in Chicago, 3 weeks traveling, doing other stores, as you know, Stanley, doing other stores. So
keeps it interesting, exciting.
Well, Ray, I think it's obvious to everyone that you obviously have a passion for fashion and art and culture and commerce. And I think that's why people are always interested in what you have to say about these topics. So we're looking forward to seeing you again this evening at 6 o'clock, when we invite the rest of the guests to ask more questions and to hear what you have to say about some of these topics. But we want to thank you so much for coming on this preview hour, just to kind of get an idea of all about Ray, because people are just dying to find out, Ray. They want to know all about you. So Marcy's going to see if she can close us out of here, because we got
I will send you some photographs, okay?
We'll look for the photographs from Ray, and we'll look forward to seeing you here tonight at 6 o'clock for Fashion Coffee Hour. Thanks so much, Ray.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.